Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whenever it is that you are watching this. Such is the beauty of pre-recorded media. My name is Skinny Minnie, and I am a drag queen from Glasgow. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Now, you may be wondering, Skinny, what am I doing seeing you here on YouTube? I'm used to seeing you on stages around Scotland doing the kicks and the flips and the cartwheels, and you would be right. I am a performance mogul. However, drag is not just a performance art, it is also visual art. Now, why did nobody tell me? I'm not gonna lie to you, troops. Over the last couple of years, my makeup has just progressively gotten worse. I would never do those start of the year to the end of the year transformation posts because I would look worse in the recent photos, and that's just a little bit embarrassing. However, it's a new year and it's time for a new, improved, creatively energized me. I've got the skills and I want to show that mama can work a makeup brush. In this video, I'm going to take you through my entire standard makeup process from start to finish in depth. This is a follow at your own risk tutorial. I am not a makeup professional and I cannot be held liable if you end up looking like shit. I know next to nothing about makeup and I've developed my methods through nothing but trial and error over the last 5 years. I'm going to show you the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. I'm going to explain my thought process, and if I'm doing anything horrifically wrong, you can let me know below. Then at the end of the year, I'll come back in December and we can do another one of these together to see how much I have or haven't improved in 12 months. So without any further ado, let's get into some makeup. The first step, I've shaved obviously. The first step is I take isopropanol alcohol and I rub that into my eyebrow. It removes all the oil and like the sebum from your skin. Oh, I just spilled it all over myself. Which makes it easier for you to put glue into it without any kind of nasty facial oils breaking it down. But if you do know me, you'll know that brow cover hasn't ever really been part of my drag fantasy or journey at literally any point. And that is because when I first started drag, I did have someone who was very, very, very helpful and very talented at drag, trying to help me out with things such as brow cover, and I had no makeup skills and I just could not take to it for the life of me. There was also a lot of social pressure in the Scottish drag scene at the time that like if you started drag and you were not like a makeup girl and you didn't have like strong makeup skills, that you should just shave your eyebrows off because it was easier, and everyone was like, oh no, just do it, just do it, just do it. So I did it rather than spend time learning how to do it. I just took the easy option and shaved them off. So it wasn't until actually I think maybe October of last year that I actually sat down and started learning how to do brow cover. So what I just did there was I took this Elmer's purple glue stick and I worked it in circles into the brow, tip to tail, making sure to saturate all the hairs. Now, I actually also have, out of drag, an eyebrow cowlick, which is one of the reasons why I put off brow cover for so long. The first layer is the most important one. You want everything to be laying mostly flat and mostly in the same direction. And once you've applied the first layer, you don't really want to disrupt it again with the spoolie. I use the actual physical force of pushing against my face to push the brows down against my face. And you should hope for a mostly flat surface. I've found that my problem area is usually in the center. So I try to really get the glue on there because I can always blend over it later. I sometimes try and fade out the edges like that as well. So the astute amongst you will notice that I'm suddenly speaking in voiceover rather than in the video, and that's because Mama had a show to get ready for and couldn't waste hours yapping to a camera. So it's me, Skinny Minnie from the future now. Woo! I use a fan to speed up the drying process, and at this stage, I tend to start licking the glue stick to add some moisture to the product, which helps with filling in the gaps and eliminating texture. I then use a neutral Revolution setting powder to set the glue down, and I really press this against my face to get the brows as flat as humanly possible. Once that's pressed in nice and flat, I use a fluffy brush to remove any excess powder. Next, I prime my skin. I was on Accutane when I was younger, so my skin texture is very dry, and I use coconut oil for maximum moisture. I don't actually recommend this. I should probably buy an actual primer. Next, I take my foundation and I slather that over the brows to fill in any gaps. I use the Revolution pan stick in F3, which is discontinued now, I think, which is an absolute nightmare because this is probably my holy grail product. Now adding contour, which is the same product but in shade F14. The formula is super creamy, easy to blend, and high coverage, which is why I love it so much. Once that's feathered feathered into my foundation, I start adding my highlight, which is Mehron's Clown White, and I blend that in also. I like creating a beige rainbow on my forehead so that I can get away without cleaning my lace for longer. I also like putting some white on my nose just now to start making it easier for me to build my crease later on. I use a different sponge for all three shades just to keep each product as impactful as possible. Next, I start sketching out my eyebrows. I start by placing the front of my eyebrow in the vertical midpoint of my covered brow, where my natural brow starts. I don't really have a technique to how I create the shape. I just go up at a 45-degree-ish angle and then out towards my temple. I'm using one of the Made by Mitchell color cases, and since I'm wearing blonde hair later, I'm keeping the brows quite light. Underneath that, I'm carving out the brow with the same Clown White as I used before and a flat concealer brush. I never really worry about the bottom of my brow because I can use this to clean it up, sharpen it, and potentially refine the shape. A lot of beauty gurus do their brows off camera, and until filming this, I didn't actually understand why. It's probably the trickiest part of your makeup because bad brow placement can disrupt your entire facial harmony. I ended up totally changing the shape of my brows from where I started from, but that's why I do all of this in cream while everything is still wet and malleable. Makeup is just paint at the end of the day. Maybe I'm a bit weird for this, but I always do one brow in full and then replicate it on the other side. I've seen advice in the past about working on your weaker side first, but does anyone actually do that? And I also have mad respect for anyone who can work on both sides at once because that is way too many variables for my brain. One tip I have is that if you're struggling to get your brows to look even, is to tilt your head down and look up into the mirror. It's a bit more obvious where the differences are than if you were to be looking directly head on. Finally, I use my finger to feather the center of the brows so that they're less blocky, and then I set everything brows and above down with the same powder from before. Now it won't move. Next, eyes. I start by sketching the general crease shape with a black eyeshadow. I'm using a stamping motion here so that I don't disrupt my brow cover. I then connect my outer corner to give me a base of where the deepest parts of my eyeshadow are going to be. I then go back over the line that I created with a darker blue, starting the blending process by stamping over and above the original line. Once I'm happy with that colour payoff, I start blending with a fluffier brush and a brighter blue. Honestly, I find blending eyeshadow is kind of hard to explain in any greater verbiage than no harsh lines and a balance of light and dark, so hopefully having a visual aid here can help you understand what I'm doing. I generally want to diffuse gradually from the deepest colour to the lightest colour. I use a pencil brush with the lightest blue to blend the shadow into the stark white on my nose. With neutral or warm tones, you could probably skip this step, but blue is so stark against human skin that you need to be more intentional with your blending and your placement. I will continually dip back into the darker blues and black to add more dimension and definition where I feel I've blended it away. It's also important to remember that drag, especially on stage, is three-dimensional and can be seen from all angles, so you don't want a large empty space between your eyeshadow and your eyebrow. I like to work on perfecting my crease blending before I worry about feathering it out towards my temple. Skinny's signature eye makeup is absolutely a blue eye. I love how classically gorgeous it is. Blue is so versatile, and so am I. There really was no other eye look I could do for a signature drag tutorial. Next, we cut the crease. This is what starts to bring everything together. I'm using another Revolution product, the Conceal and Define Concealer in white. I don't really have any advice for placing this, just follow the line that you set out originally. You want to cut through the depth and add brightness to your lid. I actually placed my crease way too high and I had to fix it with more shadow and by recutting it. Nobody is perfect. I think on social media, because we only ever see the end product and usually through filters or Facetune, let's be real, it's easy to forget that makeup is a process. I think of my makeup as 50% application and 50% fixing mistakes. In between each stamp of concealer, I'm cleaning off the brush so that it doesn't get muddy with blue eyeshadow, and because I'm only doing a half cut crease, the middle of the lid isn't really important right now. Once I'm happy with the shape, I set everything down using a white eyeshadow. Once the crease is set, I can start working on the outer corner and really reinforcing that depth. Once I'm happy with how dark the outer corner is, all I have to do is blend under the brow and repeat the blending onto the lid, ideally having the same transition of shades as before, but this time into the stark bright white of the inner corner. Never underestimate the power of a finger. For blending, I mean. Now that I'm happy with that eye, I'm going to repeat the process on the other side. Similar to brows, I like completing one side in full so that I can copy it across. It's easier for me if I have a reference to work from, so I can usually do the other eye in about half the time. In saying that, I do find symmetry to be a little bit overrated. No human face is symmetrical, and when you're speaking or performing, you're in motion, so it doesn't really matter as much as you think it would. I think there's so much pressure and perfectionism in the drag world about makeup details that just don't matter. When we're painting, we're centimeters away from our own face, so we see and pay attention to minuscule discrepancies that no audience member would ever notice. Unless you're pulling trade. I prefer effective makeup to pristine makeup, and I think we should all be a bit kinder to ourselves rather than hold ourselves to impossible standards. I've been doing makeup for over 5 years now, which is so crazy to think. And one thing I've taken from all of that experience is to prioritize practicality.
My makeup kit is small enough that I can fit it in a backpack, and I can get in drag anywhere with anything at my disposal. There's a replacement for any product if you're in a pinch. I've once covered my brows with spirit gum or used my fingers when I forgot sponges. One time, I even set my face with eyeshadow and just drowned myself in setting spray. It worked. One piece of advice I was given when starting drag was you can always add, but you can't take away. And I think that's bad makeup advice. It scared me off from using black eyeshadow for way too long. I think better advice would be don't be afraid of makeup because nothing is permanent. You can literally always wipe it off and start again. What separates drag from literally any other art form is how intensely personal it is because it's literally on your face. With poetry, painting, or crafting, you are creating something that exists separately from you, whereas with drag, you are becoming the art. Now it's time to build ourselves a base. So I add my foundation shade to my neck and the outer perimeter of my face and begin to tap it into the skin with my foundation sponge. Because I primed earlier, by this point my skin has become tacky and this helps the product blend in more easily. I add my contour shade at my temple and drag it down my cheekbone at a 45-degree angle to begin building a new shadow. I also add contour along my jaw and my chin, and with my contour sponge I start buffing this out, but I try to keep the contour as close to where I placed it as possible, except on my jaw, where I specifically bring it up higher than the natural shadow would be in order to feminize my face by making it rounder and shorter. I already have quite a round face, so I use this opportunity to erase any extra chins that might be going on and create a brand new jawline. This takes a light hand because the line between a shadow and a beard is quite thin, much thinner than me anyway. I also use my foundation sponge here to soften any harsh contour lines. Now I add my highlight. This is probably the most unique part of my makeup because I don't use any human shades of concealer. I've never been interested in serving realness. I've always wanted to look like a drawing of a cartoon woman, so my signature has been this blinding white highlight. This directs all attention to the center of my face and completely reshapes my facial structure. I also use this to clean under my cheek contour as well. I was actually originally inspired by Ellie Diamond, who also uses this high contrast drag base technique and was a major makeup mogul it girl in Scotland when I first started drag. Once I've placed all the white, I use my foundation sponge to blend everything together. This can be a bit pernickety as I'm going from dark brown to a stark white, so I can spend forever getting this blended perfectly. I blend around all the leftover edges to create one uniform complexion with no bare skin peeking through. Once I'm happy with how that looks, I start on my nose contour. I use the same brush as my eyebrows to draw a line starting from the bottom of my natural covered brow to the center of the tip of my nose. I then repeat this on the other side to the best of my ability. This is another cartoony feature of my makeup. It's not realistic in any way. It's literally a drawing on top of my nose of a thinner nose. I like the lines to be very stark on the inside and blend out on the outside. And I also like when the top of the line disappears into my crease. Once everything has been cleaned up with white, because you don't want to end up accidentally widening your nose, I make sure there's no creases under my eyes because that's a problem area of mine, and I set everything down with the same powder as before. I've been fighting a losing battle with under eye creasing for about half a decade, and I'm only getting more tired and traumatized as time goes on, so I've resigned myself to getting a lower blepharoplasty when I'm rich. I also struggle with fine line creasing around my smile lines, which is the downside of being filled with joy and whimsy, and my actual best advice for that is to just drink more water, because if I'm hydrated, they don't cause me as much grief. Make sure to powder everywhere that you put wet foundation and really press it into your skin. Then knock off any excess powder, especially across your T-zone. After that, I douse myself in setting spray to immediately reintroduce some moisture. But you might not need that step. I'm just dry as fuck. Today, I'm doing a cut cheek, so I'm using my 2018 signed Rajazzle print to line up my contour and applying a brown face powder with a fan brush to pack into the deepest pocket of my cheek. I also noticed that applying foundation had disrupted the outer corner of my eyeshadow, so I went back over it with the pencil brush and the lightest shade of blue to get the desired shape back to the way it was. Powder contours are great for reinforcing what you've already laid down, so it doesn't take much work for me to bring some life back to my face. I prefer a cool toned contour rather than a warm toned bronzer, because I just find cool tones are much more flattering on my face. After some tidying, it's time for blush. I don't know why I do this before my under eye, but I just do. Since I already have quite a round face, I like to place blush on and above my cheekbone rather than on my natural cheek's apple in order to snatch my face upwards. For my under eye, I stamp black into the outer lower third. I also didn't realise that I hadn't contoured my forehead. And repeat the blending that I did above the eye, just underneath the eye. The same shades in the same order towards the inner corner. My trick here is to pinch the bristles of the brush to apply the shadow to a smaller surface area. A blown out under eye can look cool for the right look, but it also can look messy and amateur. And this way, you don't have to soil more brushes with the same colours that you used above the eye. Now we move on to liner, which is honestly kind of hard to film, so forgive me for these angles. I coat my entire natural lid in liner, tapering to a point in the inner corner. Then I use black shadow to set the lid and blend the liner into the existing outer corner. I then extend my inner corner out 45 degrees. I usually just eyeball this by following the line that I've drawn above my eye, and I use white liner underneath to highlight and clean up any mistakes. I also put a dot of white liner on my nose. At some point in this footage, I put blush and contour on my nose, but I have no idea when, and I begin repeating the liner process on the other side. In terms of makeup, I find this the hardest, both in terms of symmetry and making mistakes. So I go very slowly and methodically. I like to use a pen liner because that feels the most natural to me, and I get very, very close to the mirror to see exactly what I'm doing. I don't think I've ever done an inner corner on my left eye without messing it up, so don't worry if you struggle with that. I think having the white liner underneath it is always a lifesaver, but just remember to let the black liner dry first. Sometimes the white liner can also stop quite abruptly, so I use my lightest blue shadow to blend it into the under eye. Almost done. Just lips and lashes to finish. I use my contour shade as a lip liner because I'm cheap, and I create a large semicircle from about 1 centimetre in from the corner of my mouth on either side. I like to completely erase my cupid's bow and create one big, juicy Bratz doll top lip. I went quite big today because I've been watching Mistress Isabel Brooks on YouTube. I fill in a few centimetres to create a shadow more than an outline, and then I repeat this process on the bottom. Lips are unique to every human face, so the proportions and the shapes take a lot of trial and error to work out. When I'm performing, I set my lip liner down with powder so that it doesn't budge. I use a creamy bullet lipstick, this one is a Blue Hydrangea Be Perfect collab, to fill in the remaining space. I marry this pink to the brown liner with my finger because it's the best tool for the job. All that's left are lashes. I'm sticking on some Glam Getter Femmes, which are a recreation of the Femme Top What a Drag Lashes, OGs will remember. I rather infamously don't wear mascara unless I'm doing a photo shoot because you literally won't see it from a distance. Okay, that is everything on and sorted. I feel puss. I'm going to stick on the hair and outfit. Give me 1 second.
And voila! That fucking voila.
Prima donna girl, yeah.
This is the finished result, everyone. I chucked on a fabulous jazzed up wig styled for me by the incredible Vujazzle, my OG Jilly Jean King Bingo Wigs announcement look from 2021, and I'm ready to go to the gig now and have a great time. But yes, this is my standard Skinny Minnie signature drag in January of 2025, and I look forward to finding out what standard signature drag looks like for Skinny Minnie in December of 2025. So if you've enjoyed this video, feel free to give me a like, give me a comment down below, subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. I'm going to be coming back with loads more drag and vlog content quite soon. But until next time, stay drunk, make bad choices. I love you so much. Goodbye.